Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Conversations from Stritch. I'm Dave Livingston, president of Lewis University, and I'm joined this afternoon by Dr. Christopher Sent. We're really glad to be with you this afternoon. I will say that as we approach Thanksgiving, we're certainly all well aware of how much the COVID pandemic is reshaping our lives in new ways as the pandemic continues to expand in Will County and throughout northern Illinois. We all received yesterday from the governor new recommendations on how it is that we should behave, the way that we should make sure that we protect ourselves and others, and really some recommendations on the choices we should make day in and day out about how often we're out and about and what we're doing as people relative to both work and play, I would say, and certainly in our case in terms of how the university functions. We've taken that guidance into account as we've thought about these next 8 days of classes that we have. If you include Saturday, 9 days of classes that we have left before Thanksgiving. And then, of course, the last 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, we will be in a mode where nearly all of our classes will be online. We'll still have some students on campus. Do want to make sure that the community is aware of that. We do have international students. We have some student athletes. We have some students who are choosing to stay on campus while they're doing their classes online. Dr. Sent is going to talk a little bit more about, both the next week and a half and kind of ways that we're thinking about that. Some of what's going on in terms of cases on campus. But I do want to re-emphasize something I feel like I say every week, but I think it's worth repeating. We have spent the semester trying to focus our attention on student success, on the balance between creating a healthy environment for people to work and study and learn, while we also look at how do we make sure that all of our employees, all of our students, and though we have limited guests now, anybody who visits campus remains healthy as they visit. And so we want to make sure that people continue to wear their face coverings, do an extra good job of washing their hands and staying at an appropriate physical distance. And I would say with the increase in cases, let's be extra careful. And instead of being 6 feet apart, if you're just standing over in the Gaffney Center, you might want to be 8 feet apart, and make sure you put on your mask as soon as you're done eating. Those kind of things that are just extra precautions against passing on this virus. I think we've heard more and more from the scientists that wearing a face covering both protects you and protects those around you. So a really important tool in trying to tamp down this virus and the spread. So I guess with that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Chris, and ask you to maybe make some comments about the next week and a half, and then the few weeks that are following after that in terms of both the way classes are delivered, finals, and the end of the semester. We have commencement coming up in December as well. So there's a lot of exciting things actually going on over the next month and a half on campus and off campus and in our virtual environment. Mm-hmm. But maybe you could talk a little bit about all of that.
Sure, I'll try to. Great to be with everyone. Wonderful to be here this afternoon. And I think President Livingston just stated very well a lot of the thoughts that are on our mind as we're getting ready for the conclusion of the fall semester. Our number one goal, as always, is student success, student learning, and a rich academic experience for our students as the semester comes to a close. We, over the next 4 weeks or so, we are quite close to Thanksgiving, and with that in mind, we will continue to offer classes in the same modalities or the same forms that we have been doing all semester long. Class meetings will continue. Most classes at most have one meeting left before Thanksgiving, but but that being said, health and safety are extremely important, and the feeling of health and safety are important, and we encourage faculty to be flexible with students who have any concerns about coming to campus for any reason, but we will continue formally, through Thanksgiving as we have planned. In addition to that, we encourage, and I'll be sending out a typical or my usual Thursday message this afternoon with a lot of these same comments, but we will encourage supervisors to work with their direct reports or the people who work in their units around being flexible, reminding people to work at home when they can. And that has really been our position all semester long, is that if people are not directly needed on campus for a particular day, please stay home. That's still the message, but we even want to emphasize that message and that flexibility as we move into the last last week and a half or so before Thanksgiving. And then finally, the other thing I think maybe I want to emphasize, in addition to the messages about careful, healthy habits, would be that members of our community, whether it be staff working in the same office or students working in a lab, or people going to class or in the residence halls, just try to remember our guidance about being as mindful as possible to minimize exposure to other people. Not only the physical distancing, but the time together and so on is really, really critical, both for safety and for minimizing the number of people in quarantine on campus. The positivity of our community, as well as is really reflective of the community surrounding us. Although our numbers are consistent with the way that they've been in the last couple of weeks. The number of people students we have in quarantine and isolation has gone dramatically down over the last few days or week or so, because our community has done such a great job of attending to contact tracing and quarantining when the time was when they were asked to do by our hotline team and so on, and just incredible great work of our hotline team has really minimized that, and I am delighted that many more students are able to be out of quarantine now than they were a couple weeks ago or even 10 days ago. I just want to make two announcements, and then we'll see if there are questions coming in before we introduce our guest. One is just a reminder that we have testing, free testing from the Will County Health Department on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So just as we move into Thanksgiving, that means we will have it on Tuesday and Thursday next week, and then the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. Well, when we're here next Thursday, we'll probably make announcements about the testing schedule into December. And then really the only other thing I want to announce, it was just a reminder to the students who are watching, families that are watching, that we still encourage applications to the COVID-19 Emergency Fund for the spring of next year. And my email today will, again, if you don't know how to apply, my email will link to the application for the COVID-19 fund.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things, Chris, to state or restate in a clear way. One, appreciate all those watching. I really want to ask you if you have questions for us. My sense is there's some people on today who just wanted to hear how are we reacting to the governor's announcements? How are we reacting to this, what seems like a really significant rise in Will County and in Illinois in general? So we've tried to address that, and we really, want to emphasize that we're hearing what is going on in the broader community here in Will County. We're also hearing from each of you that you do have some concerns, and you want to understand, are we doing things to modify our behaviors? And we've done some things which we mentioned last week around residential students. I think Chris mentioned, trying to underline this sense that if you don't need to be on campus, that don't come to campus. And I really want to put a special thank you out to everyone involved in what I would call the virtualizing of our customer service, for lack of a better word. So there are many offices in which students and even employees need to interact with a specific office. That might be around payroll for a student worker or an employee. It might be around the case to try to help with a paper. It might be around registration as we start registration next week. And what we've tried to do from the beginning, really the middle of the summer, is to continue to enhance not only our ability to deliver the education, that is, our faculty have done an amazing job of going into this hybrid or fully online format, but equally important that our offices, the registrar's office, the financial aid office, the bursar's office, CASE, and many offices around campus have worked really hard to create an excellent experience for our students and our employees if they need to interact with a different office to get something accomplished, and do that in a way in which we really minimize your need to come to campus or to come to an office or to stand in line outside of an office, because we really want to make sure that you are healthy and safe. And so that is one of the things that we'll continue to push. And as Chris mentioned, if you're an employee, talk to your supervisor. Think as an office and as an employee, how do we continue to make this a place that is safe for our students, safe for our employees, but also accomplishes the goal of student success, students getting to commencement this December, students finishing up the semester in a really positive way, finishing up that paper, studying for that final exam, all those things that will happen over the next month that are really important and crucial to what we do as a university. So I just want to make sure we emphasize that, and thanks for mentioning, Chris, the COVID-19 Relief Fund. We do know that there are many families out there who are challenged financially because of what's going on with COVID, and as we go into January and February, that's going to I think continue to happen. So really grateful about that. I don't think that we have any additional questions that come in. I think most of the questions were about this issue of what we're seeing in terms of a rise in cases. But I guess want to say publicly to you, Chris, thank you to you and your team for, I really think, coming up with a great plan. We have seen the quarantine numbers go down, and I think part of that is that we did a great job of contact tracing. People were in quarantine sometimes when they found out that they were positive.
Yes.
Which means they weren't passing it along. And that, I'm no public health expert. We've had Dr. Nancy Ryland on this show a couple times. But what I've learned over the last 6 months is that that is the key. The filling out the app before you come to campus, knowing what your symptoms are, calling the hotline, getting tested, going into quarantine, and then we minimize the spread. Even though we're going to have some, we minimize the spread by putting ourselves in quarantine and isolation. So thank you for your work and the work of the whole team. And I think with that, we can turn to, I'm excited about last week.
I do want to say one more thing,
ahead,
and then
please.
before I introduce Graciela Dufour, who's our guest today, we do have, I'll do a little advertisement for next week. Next week, Dr. Nancy Ryland, Professor Nancy Ryland, will be joining us again and she's really leading our contact tracing effort and our support, participating in our support for student effort. And she's going to talk about Thanksgiving, about just sort of general advice for our community around entering into that vacation time. And also she'll have some thoughts probably about, certainly we're going to announce some things next week about our testing strategy for January and beyond. She may or may not want to speculate about vaccinations at that time. I'll check with her before we ask her about it next week. And then eventually we will communicate about that. And then the other thing is that I guess I want to say that's a little more complicated is we have started a little work around understanding where cases are coming from in our community. We don't always know exactly how they get traced or what they get traced to, and this is true outside of the Lewis community as well. But she's really doing a lot of work on that front, as well as the rest of our hotline team and some of our data analysis is certainly happening, and we're always a little hesitant to talk about that. But I guess I want to say that, we have found no cases that are connected to the classroom or to really any work environments on the campus. And so that's true. And knowing what's going on in the community, we also want to be extra careful. And we don't want people to be here, even though there hasn't been any cases in any of these kind of exchanges where students and staff members are needing to come together to resolve issues or what have you. It's still better to be safe and to have as few a number of people on campus as possible, and we want to minimize it as much as possible, even knowing that there hasn't been much evidence or any evidence that there is that transfer of COVID going on our campus or in our formal campus environments especially.
And though we say this all the time, I just want to reemphasize what you just said is the Lewis University community has done such a great job of creating a culture at this university that when you walk into an academic building and you walk into a classroom, that you do respect each other in terms of keeping a social distance, wearing your face covering, washing your hands, because we haven't had that transmission. And if people were laissez-faire about it, we certainly would have,
yes.
Because this virus is incredibly infectious. So just a shout out to all of our students, all of our faculty who have really created an environment in the classroom that has been safe.
Yes, that's absolutely true. It's so grateful for how everyone has been. So in our preparation for the spring semester especially, but even thinking through these issues we're talking about right now and thinking about the campus between now and the Christmas vacation, we've asked Graciela Dufour, our Associate Vice President for Human Resources, to come on and join us and have a discussion, but mostly to present the results of the staff survey that we did do the last couple of weeks. Last week, Ann Rapp was with us talking about both the faculty and the student surveys that are somewhat similar to this, and now we wanted to share the results of the staff survey with the perspective of, what can we learn, what can we do differently, change as we're moving, really, like I said, into Christmas, but also into the spring semester. So, Graciela, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Graciela.
And Graciela I just want to mention that she's also a member of our COVID-19 hotline team, and has been working especially around employee issues in relationship to COVID, which we know have been relatively small, but still, thank you so much for the work that you've done in supporting our staff and faculty through this difficult time.
It certainly has been a collaborative effort. Not just me. My director, Lori, has been nights and weekends as well, responding to various complaints or concerns.
Yes. So I think we'll just let you kind of take it away with the presentation, and I know our producers are ready to show some of these results, so we will let you go.
All right, great. So very happy with the results of our survey. We received a 60% response rate, which I think is really indicative of how eager our employees are wanting to provide information and feedback for us. And as you'll see, the very first question, and there really is only about 7 slides, but the first question revolved around our policies and guidelines and asking our staff if they felt that we were keeping an appropriate working environment for our staff members. And predominantly agree to strongly agree, showing that there is, in fact, a real strong sense that the university has been taking care of the work conditions and the grounds in general. Next slide. In regards to our communication, that also has been something that has been received very well, and the response rate is, again, they agree to strongly agree. They feel very, very, I think, satisfied. Sorry about that. I think the slide before was the communication. So the communication that they're receiving about the effective working environment. Communication I receive about Lewis's approach has been informative and relevant for staff. Again, very strongly agree that the university is putting out timely communication, communication that's effective and supportive. Next. When we ask the question about supervisory relationships and whether or not the supervisor has been supportive during the pandemic, you see, by and large, absolutely, our employees, our staff is saying that they strongly agree that their supervisors have been supportive. And that's also reflective in the open-ended responses that we collected, although we have not delved into them in major detail. I did see some themes emerge where supervisor support and that communication has been seen as one that has been critical in, I think, this particular response, right? Next. I feel a sense of association with my colleagues, even though we cannot meet in person. If there's one area that the university—
John, can you make sure
perhaps—
Chella can hear us? Chella,
Sorry.
can you hear
I
us?
can hear you now. Yes.
Okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
sorry, we thought you could hear us. We were trying to stop you. And if we
Oh,
could
I
just go
didn't hear
back,
you, sorry.
if we could just go back to that supervisor slide. And
Yes.
I just want to, a lot of this staff feedback is positive. You know, we're looking at a lot of these bars that are heavily weighted on the top of this agree and strongly agree. And we don't have time to like deeply analyze the nuances here, but this is extremely, like relative to the other news, this is extremely positive. And I just want to slow down and thank our supervisors so deeply for the care that they're taking in their units and with the people that report to them. And it's especially relevant right now in the other announcements that we made earlier today around, there's much more careful and nuanced conversations with supervisors that are needing to take place as the positivity rates goes up around us, and we're sifting through how to interpret the governor's announcements and so on. I think that our supervisors are so important, and it's so encouraging and not surprising to see that there's such positive numbers there. I don't know what you were going to say.
Well, it was very similar, and I guess I'll just re-emphasize. One, thank you to Chris, you, and Chella, and all the other leaders on campus for setting a tone among supervisors when they come in and ask, how do I deal with this? Because that was, I think, some of the summer work, right, that had to prepare. And then, again, just such gratitude to our supervisors who created an environment of flexibility where it seems like this slide, especially, what it says to me, and I'm trying to read between the lines, so to speak, or read the bar graph, is that employees felt comfortable going to their supervisor and saying, I live with my mother and she is sick, and so I want to be able to, or she has comorbidities, or my kids are in this situation. Can I come into work less often? Can I be the person who works in a fully online environment? Can I teach my classes in a fully online way? But this, in terms of the staff, it's such a variety of jobs that are done on this campus, across, in some ways, a place like Lewis University is a small town. And so we do, everything from plumbing to, police and safety to, taking care of paying people, as I've mentioned. And so I just want to say to the supervisors, your care and your sense of association with your colleagues really comes through in this slide, and I just think it's a testament to who we are as a community. And I want to also thank the employees who responded to the survey and were willing to say out loud, my supervisors really supported me, and I'm grateful for it, because it means a lot to the supervisors to hear that.
agree, absolutely. Between that slide and the one that talked about the communication, I think that our employees are absolutely, they need the support, but they need the ongoing support, the ongoing communication. And so, what we've heard is that these kinds of um, outreach, the weekly emails that Chris does, or the weekly emails that I send out, conversations from Stritch, this is the way that they can really feel connected and engaged. And so we've been doing a very good job of sharing anything from budget issues to COVID to a variety of topics. And so I'm hearing that they love it, and perhaps that they even want more ongoing kinds of communications.
Yeah, no, it's great, Chella. And, I guess just one more thing to say about that is, as we approach Thanksgiving, Christmas, the other holidays that are all in this season, and then prepare for the return of students in January, my sense is there's going to be a lot of change. I mean, if we've learned anything this fall, it's that things keep changing. And so for our employees, that relationship you just talked about, the flexibility is so important as we move forward over these next 2 months, because I think there are going to be some ups and downs in terms of cases, in terms of departments, the needs that we have, and we certainly know that our students' needs are constantly changing as well. So I think that flexibility and the willingness to listen, and to engage in a real, listening closely to what an employee is actually saying. And I guess what I would say is, for our employees, to listen well to what our students are saying, and that flexibility and care about how can we achieve what we want to achieve here and do it in a way that really is appropriate to the circumstances. So I just, applaud your work, Chella, and the work of all the other supervisors around campus.
Thank you. So that brings us to our next slide. It talks about association, and that I feel a sense of association with my colleagues, even though we cannot meet in person. This is one where it also, I think, gives really good remarks, really high grade, but there is opportunity perhaps for some work there in terms of how are we able to really engage our faculty and staff? How are we having them feel that they're part of a team, and that there is still that team-like environment? Certainly, Microsoft Teams has been wonderful and has provided a beautiful resource for us in terms of being connected and being able to stay in touch with your whatever team you're associated with. But it obviously doesn't replace the human interaction, the social interactions, and people are human, and they miss that. They miss the just basic exchange. And so, are there ways in which the university can create more socialization, more engagement, more collaboration? And so I think there certainly is an opportunity there that we can look at, and also take in some feedback or ideas if people have ideas on how they can be connected a little bit more, especially when we have the holidays around the corner.
Yeah, it was so well stated, Chella. I just want to underscore what you just said, and how that particular slide does indicate quite a little bit more people disagreeing and indicating the need for more opportunities for association and community. And I think that's really consistent with the faculty survey that we heard last week. A desire for that kind of hallway conversation, or for the kind of the less formal communication that some of us have attempted to do via these platforms, but it kind of fades away after a while. And I also just want to really appreciate, and that's something we've been talking about because it was in the faculty survey. We talked about, a lot of the groups that I met with last week talked about that, and I think this is continuing that conversation. And And as you said, especially in relationship to the holidays, finding ways to come together as a community and to have social opportunities is something, and I think we would love to hear ideas about, how to do that and how to do it under these conditions. I think the floor is open for creativity on that front as we move into the next couple weeks and kind of think about how we're going to celebrate the holidays together.
But separate.
Yeah. Yes.
And so the question around resources, I have been provided with sufficient resources to perform my work responsibilities in a remote working environment. Here you also see a real strong gauge on people's responses that yes, they can, and they have the resources. A little bit more of the neutral there, but I think by and large what we have found, and again, sifting through some of the comments, people have learned a lot through this pandemic, and they've learned that they can do their jobs at home. They can be effective. And if there has been any kind of obstacle or challenge, I think it goes back to communication again with the supervisors or with your colleagues. And if there's things that are needed, basic office supplies that are needed, but it's in the office, then you get it and you bring it back home, because that is your home base now. That's how you're able to operate. And so people have said that they really appreciate it. In fact, I think there was a comment that said, with the gas money and my dry cleaning laundry that I'm no longer having to spend, I can actually use that money now for other things. And another person said, in fact, I've donated it to the budget relief fund. So, people are seeing definite positives with being able to work from home, and that, asking for supervisory assistance if they don't have the appropriate resources.
Great.
And I guess I would add that.
I'm sorry, I want to say something about that too, Chella. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. I guess one observation I have, and thinking about some of the comments that you just made, and the statistics and the comments that were made that we're still kind of processing, individual comments. It's just notable that in March of 2020, we didn't quite know how long people were going to be working at home, and we might have intellectually predicted that we'd be working at home now and going into the winter. But I think I just want to make sure people know and hear that we're interested in, maybe the conditions. Everyone had what they needed in terms of their connections and their computers and their paper and all that, all the things you just mentioned initially. But if there is more sustained work at home, and who knows, some people may end up working at home past this, as a result of what we're learning about work and what you just said about gas and dry cleaning and all that. So just as long, I hope we're continuing to, people are communicating with their supervisors and talking, in different formats about how the needs are evolving over this, it's now been 10 months or so.
And if I could make a comment on that as well, Chris, just in the spirit of that, it feels to me, not feels to me, we've mentioned, I think, briefly in a couple communications, we received this GEAR grant. It was a competitive grant to enhance the education of students on campus. It's going to allow us to enhance our STARS program, which is a resource for students to be able to have Wi-Fi hotspots and laptops if they need it. We did that this fall, but we want to enhance that. I think as we talk about staff, that's another thing, as Chris was mentioning, maybe some of us saw, it'll be January, February, and we're still going to have the same number of, we have as many cases now in Will County in terms of the kind of spike that we're going through as we had last spring, when we thought, this will be the kind of peak. So employees are still in that mode where they might need additional resources that they didn't think they'd need. Students are certainly in that mode. And I also, grateful again to the state for making this grant possible. But also we received a grant from the Christian Brothers. And I do want to thank publicly the Christian Brothers for making, a grant available that can help us through some of this. Some of that is going to be used for testing. Some of that is going to be used for things related to things like Wi-Fi hotspots. And so, and we talked last week about how great the Signum Fidei event was and how many of our employees, I will say that about, as you mentioned, Shella, not only did some of our employees, reach back to the university and say, I really believe in our mission. I want to give back, in multiple ways. And some of them, many of them were very influential in us achieving our goal in Signum Fidei. All of these things are a testament to what they see, what our employees see going on day in and day out in the classroom and, in the practice arena and in the residence halls and in the student center, that this is transforming lives and they believe in it and they want to invest in it. And I think it's just it's something really positive that's going on here in the midst of some really chaotic realities. So I'll let you get back to the, I think we have maybe 2 more graphs, but just excited about all the positive things that are going on as well.
Thanks, Dave. And so this slide really focused on the safe working environment. And so the statement was, I am satisfied with the safe working environment in preparation for getting my work accomplished. And obviously, if you're remote working, you're home, you're in charge of having that safe working environment. For those people, though, that are either coming to campus or don't have the ability to work from home and are here Monday through Friday or sometimes on the weekends, we're really wanting to hear from them. Do you think that the university has done a really good job in providing a safe working environment? And again, you see really high marks on the strongly agree and the agree. I think that it says volumes, again, about our commitment to our employees. Next.
Is there another one?
Is there another slide? Maybe that's it.
Was that the last one? Oh, that is the last one. Yeah.
So that is
right.
that is the end of all the good news. And again, we don't want to be Pollyanna-ish. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that I do want to reemphasize that. The 3 of us we're not jaded. We're very optimistic and hopeful. But we've been in administration for a long time, and we know that we always have room to grow as an organization. And that as positive as these results are, and I really think they are very positive and a great, as you said at the beginning, Chella, great response rate. I mean, sometimes you send out a survey and 5 people respond. And we had, to have 60% response rate is really incredible for a survey. Mm-hmm. And to have it be as positive. But we also did receive a lot of individual comments, the kind of not just, 1 through 5 that I'm picking. And there were concerns, and we want to hear that. It's why we do these shows. It's why we have this Ask Us up on the screen. We want to be clear-headed about ways that we can improve ourselves, and our employees are our best on-the-ground people who can tell us how we can make the experience for our students better, how we can make the experience for our employees better. So thank you for that, constructive criticism. And the concerns that you've outlined for us so that we can improve next semester, because we will and plan to start next semester in a very similar situation. I mean, we do expect, I think many of us are very hopeful about, the news that's coming about the Pfizer vaccine. As Chris mentioned, maybe Nancy will want to say something about that, maybe she won't. But, I think we're all hopeful that we're going to have a vaccine within the next year that is going to be widely available. But we also are realists that we're not going to have a vaccine that is going to be widely available where everybody's going to have it by January 20th, right? We're going to start next year with this virus still a part of our lives. And so the ways that the community has responded to these 3 surveys, the student survey, the faculty survey, and the staff survey, give us a lot of things to chew on over the next month and a half on how do we improve the delivery of education for the spring semester? How do we improve the experience for our employees, our students, parents feeling comfortable sending their students back. And just a reminder, next week is registration week. So Monday, graduate students register for classes, and Tuesday, undergrads start. I think it's 8 o'clock in the morning, so 8 and noon, and different groups kind of keep coming on all throughout next week. So we're looking forward to students registering for classes, and of course really excited about celebrating at commencement with those students that will be graduating in December. So a lot of exciting things going on. Chris, I don't know if you have some comments or...
I do. I want to just, before we close today, Chella mentioned quite a few of the constructive feedback that we got in the survey. She and I have had the privilege of reading all the comments, and we're working on, it's just more time consuming to summarize those great long comments that the staff made in the staff survey. But she mentioned a few of them already that are kind of common themes throughout those individual comments. The sense of building community, the need for even more and multiple ways of communicating. One of the questions we didn't show the response to suggested more texting, for example, as an opportunity. But there are other specific suggestions that were really great in the individual comments. And then I think we are going to plan on talking about spring planning, even though we've done it in lots of different ways in small pieces, but we probably will do a whole show, just a comprehensive view of the planning for spring in probably early December. And then finally, and Chella, you can add on to this, but I think I'm trying to cover it all, a strong showing in the comments around need for, or a desire for training, professional development among the staff, and especially now when new things are being asked and there are new technologies and all that. And I think the Tech Tuesdays that have started have been really, really well received. But I think we're getting the message that more, that and more of that is wanted and desired.
I would agree. I think that perhaps when the survey went out, it was around the time that those the tech talks were starting to get launched. And so it was relatively new and maybe hadn't catched on yet. And so yes, individuals saying that they would like to have some more training as it relates to either Microsoft applications or what can you do within WebEx. But then also, because of the political tenor in the country, more training around diversity. And so, proud to say both of these two areas that we've seen responses in saying, we would like more of this. We have already begun on that journey, and we will continue to do that and build off of the momentum that we've started. So
yeah,
definitely excited about that.
It's great. I'm excited about that as well, Chella. So thank you for that. We did receive a question that came in from a student. I think this is mostly for you, Chris, but Chella, you can stick around and we may get other questions that come in. And I just want to, again, underline that on your screen, ask us at lewisu.edu. That's being tracked. So if you want to ask a question right now, follow up to Chella specifically while she's here. Feel free to send in a question. But a student question came in, Chris, that you just mentioned, but I guess what I want to do is make sure that the student recognizes that we heard it. So question about kind of what our class is going to look like in January and spring semester, but also, and maybe this is something that, again, we'll probably talk about in December, a full show on this, or early January, but also the sense of student life on and off campus. Mm-hmm. I do think that that's been a challenging part of this. Certainly, we will talk a little bit more about athletics, I think sometime in January, because, and I do want to emphasize a couple things about student life on and off campus. So the play starts tonight, and so students still are doing those co-curricular activities. The first men's and women's basketball game are scheduled for the 27th of this month. So right after Thanksgiving, we get to enjoy Flyer athletics starting in full force. Of course, we talked about how well our men's and women's cross country teams did this fall, but could, maybe it's more of a teaser, just like you did about we're going to
Sure.
talk a little bit about Thanksgiving, the teaser for what are we going to talk about over the next month about spring, and how can we say to the student, come back and we're going to have some other guests who can really talk in more depth about this.
Yeah, certainly we will come back and do full shows probably certainly in December, if not multiple times, around our approach to the spring. Really just to remind people that we have not changed course. The registration that's happening on Monday and Tuesday displays the approach academically for the spring in terms of having choices among online and hybrid and in-person courses similar to this semester with some of those adjustments that we've talked about. And I think President Livingston addressed to some degree the co-curricular and student life issues, but we will continue to, assuming we are allowed to, which I think we will be, under most circumstances, to do student life activities, clubs, recreation opportunities that are both in person and online, as we've done this semester, and really like teaching, like working on campus. The student life and professionals are also refining what they're doing, and they've seen what works and what they want to keep doing and what they want to experiment with in the spring. So I'm excited about the opportunities that will be there for student life engagement in the spring semester. If you're done, I have one final thing I want to say.
Please, go ahead.
Which is that today is my daughter's 14th birthday.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
She is most certainly not watching this because she's 14. But we also heard that it's Chella's birthday
On
in
Saturday.
2 days. So we just wanted to tell you happy birthday. And
Happy birthday.
Oh,
Feliz
thank you.
cumpleaños. All that good stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So please enjoy the day, and thank you so much for everything you do at Lewis and for joining us today.
Well, that was very sweet. Thank you.
So before you leave, Chella, we did have a question that came in that I wanted to ask you maybe to respond to. I did do some digging because it came in ahead of time, and it was about some ongoing concern of our employees around the issue of we've had a decent number of cases in which the Illinois Department of Unemployment has contacted your office and said, Dave Livingston applied for unemployment. Did you fire Dave Livingston? And or did Dave Livingston leave your organization because he's saying he doesn't have a job? There were two things asked, and I'm going to respond to one that I got earlier from our technology folks. The question was, did we have a breach in our system, and was our data compromised in the last 3 months, and is that why these numbers of cases have gone up? And the answer to that is no. We have not had a breach of our data, and so that specifically, we have not had a breach in which all of people's data have been released. Now, I guess I'd like to ask you, because you've mentioned to me in the past when we've talked about this, that we are not alone in this. Other colleges and universities are facing a similar thing. So maybe you could just quickly talk through, I guess, what's going on in the broader landscape, what you're seeing in Illinois, and what is this? What does it mean? I mean, what is actually going on here from, I guess, you and the other HR professionals in the state that are having to deal with this?
Sure, that's a really good topic. So Dave, I'm chair-elect for our CUPA Illinois board. It's the College and University Professional Association of Human Resource. And we actually held a webinar last week for the members of Illinois, so our peers, HR professionals. And it really was in response to seeing ongoing conversation on our listserv about this question. People asking, have you had, how many of your employees have been affected? What are you doing? What kind of communication are you providing? And so this webinar that consisted of other Illinois colleges and universities, both four-year private, public, community colleges, everyone talked about this phenomenon that's occurring. And we don't really know where the information was gathered. We don't know how long ago it was gathered. All we know is that, and I can say it happened to me, it happened to Lori. So firsthand, we have experience with having to walk through protecting our data and our information. And so when this has happened, first of all, we get contacted by a third-party vendor that we use for our unemployment processing. And so they'll notify us and say, we have a claim, and we provide the information. At first, it was here and there, one a week, maybe two. And then at some point, it was 10 a day. And so it certainly did increase. And there was a large number of our employees that have been affected. I've been pretty regular in trying to communicate with those individuals and also put information in the HR Weekly. But when it happens, it's certainly something that is, it's a little frightening. You don't know exactly how much of the information they have. And so we've been providing our employees with, here are the steps to take. Here's who you need to contact. And so that's really been helpful. And we've also been connecting our employees that had this occur to them. At least in the first part, when it first was happening, there was almost like a little cohort of individuals that had been affected by this fraud. And we were able to connect them, and they used it almost as a counseling group. And so it has slowed down. We have not seen the massive amount of claims that have been coming in. It's back to the maybe one or two a day. And so that's really a positive that I think for whatever reason that has slowed. But certainly people have taken advantage of the fact that they know a lot of employers had either furloughed or had to cut positions. And they saw this as a unique opportunity that, well, maybe the employer is too busy to actually check it. And maybe there's a way that I can reap the benefits from this particular situation. So it's unfortunate, but we've been on top of it and we've been helping our employees through this.
Thank you, Chella. It's really great information. It's unfortunate information because, one, we're not the only school, and to hear that one or two a day is a good number is shocking to me, as it was when this first started happening. So, and I just again try to empathy and sympathy for all of our employees who are facing this, because it's a major hassle in the midst of trying to do all this extra work that is a part of our current life, and then to have to then get on the line and deal with all of this additional stuff relative to one's personal information. So I think with that, I'd like to personally again say thank you and happy birthday to you, Chella. Thanks so much for joining us and for all of your knowledge and the way you work with our employees and creating this environment. Chris?
I'm good.
All right.
Thank
so.
you.
Then I'll wrap up. Just a couple quick, closing remarks. Again, major thank you to everyone watching and who might watch and who's not watching for the great care and concern that you're showing to each other, carrying on this great mission of ours to educate our students. Want to wish you a really safe and healthy next few weeks. Enjoy Thanksgiving. We'll be back next week to talk a little bit about Thanksgiving and holidays, continue to update you on what's going on with COVID, and as we wrap up the kind of in-person portion of the semester and move into the online portion of the semester. Many blessings to you and your family. God bless you all.